Welcome into DNVR Watches The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 5, The Jedi. I'm your host, Drew Kreisman. Returning to the show is super producer Guy, and making his first appearance, talking Mando with us, is, of course, Eric parentheses D-line. I guess it's the other way around, D-line parentheses Eric Weedham. You say the whole thing. It's like one of those rappers that's got a really long,
Well, if this was mathematics, you'd be right to start inside of the brackets and then move your way out. So congratulations. I didn't know you were such a mathematical genius. No. I should have assumed.
I appreciate you picking me up like that. It's a math thing. So, of course, we got to get into character power rankings before too long. I'm sure everyone wants to know where we've got the most notable and obvious entry into that situation. Ooh. We got to talk about a lot of stuff going on in this episode. But first, we got to start with the big takeaways. And since, Eric, it is your first time on the show, just your big top line takeaway about this episode. And since it's your first time, about this season so far.
So I've described to you and to anybody else that will listen to me, which is not many people, that I am a Star Wars moderate. I'm a Star Wars moderate. I'm on this show as representing the great unwashed, the standard Star Wars fan. I'm not a super fan. I will never, ever watch the cartoons. I will enjoy... I've told you that I deny the existence of the prequels. I love, obviously, the first three. I really have enjoyed the new versions of the Disney Star Wars that have come out. Like, I get all of... I see all the complaints that people have, but I have found them to be very entertaining. So from that point of view, and the first season of The Mandalorian, I felt like it started off so strong, and by the end of it, I was kind of like, okay, I don't know. So that being said, going into this season, I didn't have the highest of hopes. I sort of like, I enjoy them every week, but I certainly don't I don't usually go gaga gooey for them, but I feel like they're getting a lot better. Like my main complaint with The Mandalorian just in general is it always felt sort of just like TV grade Star Wars to me. And TV grade Star Wars meaning, just like it felt like a lot of guys in rubber suits sometimes, and you couldn't put the requisite production value into something that spanned out so many parts. But I felt like the last several really upped the ante, and it had that epic Star Wars quality, and it felt like Star Wars to me. So I really have been I really have appreciated the last several episodes. So the overall the takeaway from this season is I feel like it's getting better in my view.
Yeah, that's interesting. But it's interesting, too, that you came into this one. We'll have to get your thoughts, because I assume you had no connection to or knowledge of this character, Ahsoka Tano. There wasn't hey, I was going to say, I think she makes some appearance in the prequels, but you deny the existence of the prequels, and you didn't watch the cartoons, so you're not... So there was no connection to this character at all.
No, not at all. I mean, this is a character I've seen floating around, and I know that the hardcore fans are really into this character, and so it wasn't a surprise for me to see her make an appearance in that sense. But I don't know anything. I don't know the backstory. I don't know anything about what she's all about. But she was cool.
All right. We can get more on that. Guy, what was your top line takeaway? What'd you think of the episode?
I was down on this season until this episode, and I think they kind of, I don't know, they redeemed themselves, and now it feels like it's actually going somewhere. Before, it was very much he gets to a planet, he needs help. Sure, I'll help you, but you gotta do this for me first. It goes off the rails. He figures it out, and then he's off to the next planet, and then it's rinse and repeat every single episode. And it feels like now there's actually finally a drive, a goal for this. There was always this kind of ooh, I gotta get the kid to the Jedi, but now they're actually on that path, it feels like. I like when you say TV grade Star Wars, Eric, you say that the production value wasn't there for you. I'm the opposite on that. I think that the production value was always there for me. I think it was always beautifully shot, but it was poorly acted in a lot of places, and it was kind of bland writing. I think that they were really resting on the laurels of what Star Wars had did before them, and they're just kind of I don't know, going by and, not reinventing the wheel in any way, just collecting paychecks, basically. But this was the first episode where I feel like they actually went out of their way to really, I don't know. They actually had good acting in this one, which I mean, Timothy Olyphant, and I believe, what was it, the first episode? His character wasn't very well acted, and I know that he's a good actor because I've seen him in Fargo. His acting in Fargo has been fantastic, and I think it
I
speaks
thought he
to-
was awesome, but I don't know, whatever.
in the first episode. Oh man,
Yeah, I thought he was awesome. Like he was
just kind of
like
sat in the background. He didn't really do anything, man. He was kind of like.
I can't believe I'm not the hater on this episode. This is amazing.
Yeah, I know.
I thought for sure I was going to
shocked.
come
Guy
in here
comes
like
out
I'd be
swinging.
up
Look
against
at
the
him.
wall, but no.
Yeah, no, I like this episode. I'm just saying that building up to this episode, things had kind of been disappointing me, and now I feel like we're actually getting redemption. Rosario Dawson, I thought, was fantastic in this episode, and now we actually finally start to see like a three-dimensional kind of side of the kid as well, or Grogu as we now know him. And before, he
Grogu.
was just kind of this bland character that would just sit there and act all goofy and needed to be saved every single episode. And like maybe he ate some, reptile eggs, but he wasn't actually like, he didn't have much of a personality. And now we actually start to see that come through. We kind of start to see that, he's afraid of certain things. Like, is he going to be able to control the Force, et cetera, et cetera? Does he have attachments to certain people? How does he react in certain situations? So now he's actually a three-dimensional, like multifaceted character, which I'm finally appreciating, because before it was just kind of like, oh, is this just a guy that's going to sell little plush toys, or is he an actual character in this show? So I feel like this episode is definitely redeeming the series in my eyes, at least.
Well, there you have it, a redemption story. I've enjoyed the series the entire time. I've never been really down on it, but I do think the last 3 episodes have been especially good. And I think this has been, I think this was one of the best episodes of The Mandalorian. I don't know if it can exist like outside of the rest of it. I don't know that you can go on and be like, just watch this one episode and it exists as like a standalone moment, because as Guy was saying, so much of it's about like developing the character. We've talked a lot about on character power rankings, why Baby Yoda, now Grogu, would like slip down to 3rd, right? Because it's like, he hasn't done anything in a while. And he didn't really do much this episode, but we learned a lot more about him. We got a lot more backstory. We learned, for those of us that are hardcore people here, that he'd like been around since the Clone Wars. It's like, oh, okay, that's I didn't have a reference point for how long he'd been around. That's a little bit longer than I maybe would have anticipated. We've got a name now. We've got this idea that he can be trained, and I think for me, sometimes we talk about favorite line, or I don't know if it was my favorite line of the episode, but certainly the most interesting was when she said to Grogu, or I guess she was saying it to Mando, I sense much fear in him, right? Which, for those who don't deny the prequels, Eric, is a callback to something that
Wouldn't know.
was said about Anakin, right? And so to say that, I think it's really interesting. It does add this like 3-dimensional layer where before saying I sense fear in this little Yoda, he was a cute plush toy who made cute noises and made us go, oh, and hadn't done anything in a season since then. And now this idea that like, okay, he does have, we knew he had, right, he has powers of the Force, but that maybe it could be a dark thing. Like that was a twist I wasn't expecting. This idea that like, because as we know, fear in a Jedi can lead to very dangerous things, as she says. So what did you think of that? D-line parentheses, Eric, / you say the whole
It's
thing.
interesting. So so the one thing I'd have like appreciated about this season also is that there are like seemingly surface level and almost childlike trends, I guess, that are being explained out further. Maybe like, for example, like this is the way, right? Like it just seemed like, all right, like this is like a dumb catchphrase that we're going to use over and over. But I really appreciated how in the last episode it like became clear that is actually like the calling card of like a fanatical sect
Right.
of the
Got turned on its head a bit. Totally.
It got turned on its So I appreciated that. That was cool. Like, so like to what you're saying, just adding depth to this world a little bit and like putting maybe a little sinister spin on it makes it a little less childlike, and maybe that there's more depth there to explore, and that's interesting. So I mean, I obviously wasn't thinking about that. A person who doesn't acknowledge the existence of the prequels that hadn't gone into my head. But you saying that, look at me, I'm intrigued. Let's see what happens. I can't wait.
Right. And so the other thing that I guess, do we even want to tell him? What do we do? Do we tell him who Ahsoka is, or do we? I mean, because everybody's watching, listening to this.
Yeah, you should. Of course. Yeah, tell me. Tell us. Tell everyone. Ahsoka. I mean, I could tell Ahsoka's a Jedi. Ahsoka's Rosario Dawson. Ahsoka, as I learned,
by the way, is a phenomenal actor and one of the most beautiful people on the face of the planet. But she's good in everything.
It's true. But I put out a tweet during the DNVR watches, asking, to be clear, are her tentacle things a hat? Turns out, not a hat. Not a hat. And Trey, who I'm borrowing his Disney Plus login from, was very offended, and I think felt like maybe I've been abusing his Disney Plus login with a question like that.
Who have I let into my house? So for anyone, and if you don't hear this, skip ahead just a few minutes. But Ahsoka Tano, during Clone Wars, was the apprentice of Anakin Skywalker. And so the other line that was really, really great with extra weight and meaning is when she, talks about, we can't just train someone because they've got powers in the Force. The best of us can go bad. She's talking about one of the people that trained her who went as bad as they go, right? And so it was such a treat for those who are into the deeper lore. But it's also great. I think that is perfectly entertaining for someone like you who was like, I didn't get anything out of that, but all this other stuff I was getting plenty out of.
Yeah, I would say like the thing that I took most from this episode, from just a pure entertainment standpoint, is that it like really was getting back to its like samurai movie roots. Like this movie was, or this episode was like super duper feudal Japanese. It was like you had the village that had been overtaken by the warlord, and then you had to have the seven samurai break in, the ninja warrior break in, and sneak through and ultimately slay the warlord. Which like watching back in the day, watching Star Wars, and then watching The Hidden Fortress. I don't know if you've ever watched that by Akira Kurosawa. You should watch that as a Star Wars lover, because like that.
I was going to say, I know Kurosawa films and I don't know that one.
That one specifically is like, you'll watch it and you'll see the genesis of Star Wars. Like you'll see C-3PO and R2-D2 in these two like bumbling.
That's what it's based on, yeah.
Yeah,
I've seen like Seven Samurai and stuff.
Yeah. So. It's cool. It's just always cool for it to like really go back to those roots, and it really felt it in this episode, which I, from an artistic standpoint, I really, really appreciated.
Yeah, I was going to mention that as well. When they have, they're doing the battle on the bridge right there, the way it's shot,
yeah,
the way like the focus is like vignetted on the corners there.
It was like Kill Bill style,
that wide
totally.
angle lens.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, but it was more.
Well, sure, but
Kill Bill is still based on the samurai movies.
Oh yeah,
so,
yes,
right.
Yeah.
But it's in the same level as Kill Bill in that it's taking reference from and putting it on the same level as.
Right.
It's like saying that Bruno Mars is on the same level as Sting.
No, Star Wars and Kill Bill are on the same level, you dipshit. not Akira Kurosawa and all right, whatever. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I just thought it was beautifully shot, man, and I think that it evokes that without being like overtly like oh, this is like a samurai, callback. They're not like, throw it in your face, but, fighting on the rooftops, things like that, like, slowly like going alley by alley and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was really beautifully done and translated into a, what do they call that? A space opera sort of setting.
Right. I love too that during that you've also got that little Western moment too with the standoff, with the showdown between the two of them. So inside all the samurai stuff, you've got Mando having like his own genre flick moment, like with a literal showdown with this guy. And I love that they could hear the other fight going on. I love that moment where the guy says, "So, who do you think's gonna win?"
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like Western meets samurai, and I like how they kind of juxtaposed the two of them like that.
Yeah, and those two genres are also like inextricably linked. The other thing that I thought, the thing that I like really noticed in this episode is that the writing was much better, and it's because Jon Favreau did not write this episode. Like I've noticed that the episodes that Jon Favreau writes like all come down like it uses the convention I hate and they use it over and over in The Mandalorian, which is like, oh no, like we're trapped up against the wall, all hope is lost, and then like a shot comes from off screen from somebody you weren't expecting to like kill that. That happens every episode. It actually happened again. Like The Mandalorian himself did it this time when he popped in, but it wasn't like as pronounced.
It was also
but I just thought it was a lot more. Like I felt like the writing and the storyline was a lot more sophisticated this time around.
It's called Deus Ex Machina, is what you're talking about, and he overuses the hell out of it.
Yes,
and I
he does.
agree. With that's what I was saying. Previous episodes that they were losing me was it was just so predictable. Whereas every single episode was like, all right, here's a little town that you're going to. Here's a big bad beast that they can't seem to slay. We need your help. And it's like, oh no, everything went to shit, and we got to figure out how to like kill this beast, and we're backed up against the wall. And then it's like, here's this act of God that's gonna save us. Like that kept happening, and this was actually a very like I don't know, it was more dynamic, and things went like according to plan, so to speak. But it was still more intriguing in that way rather than like the fake suspense that they build by like getting backed up against the wall like you're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I've often talked about that helps me get over all of these plot issues that Star Wars, by the way, has always had, is as I've said, look, we've got to be honest about what we come to Star Wars for, and a bunch of it is the spectacle. And one of the major things that is in every Star Wars movie, but is yet to be in an episode of The Mandalorian, is a lightsaber fight. We finally got ourselves a Mandalorian lightsaber duel. And so we often talk about play of the game. Here's my question for you. It's a toss-up for me. It's a style question. It's a Rorschach test. Play of the game. Ahsoka Tano taking it down with the double lightsabers and doing her thing. All the acrobatics in the world, or Mando, one shot. What's the play of the game?
Ooh, that's a good question. Play the game.
What's more badass? Like all the back and forth against another opponent. Maybe
you got to go style. Yeah, you got to go style. You got to go style over. I mean, it's absolutely the lightsaber battle. I mean, it wasn't a lightsaber battle because it wasn't lightsaber v lightsaber. It was
right.
Lightsaber
We still
versus,
we still haven't
gotten exactly. But it was cool. Like, and to be frank, like I was really surprised that the lady that looked a little bit like Sherry O'Terry was able to hold her own. Was able to hold her own on that bridge with a spear when going up against a double lightsaber. She even knocked one of the lightsabers into the pond.
Right.
Impressive, Sherry O'Terry.
Wow. Not a name I was expecting to hear on the podcast. Guy, do you have a pick for play of the game?
I'm going to go with the shot just because I think that fight could have been a little bit more, I don't know, better choreographed, really. It kind of was just like, didn't really ever seem like that there was much of a threat there from Sherry O'Terry, as Eric so eloquently put it. Ahsoka won the battle, but it didn't really, I don't know. There weren't any real intense moments on it. The way that when you watch a lot of movies, of the Star Wars movies, those battles are so well choreographed. I think that they've set a very high standard. Especially just within the Star Wars universe. That I just feel like it was cool to see a lightsaber and everything, but at the same time, I've come to expect a little bit more. I mean, I'm holding them to a higher standard. This is like the
Guy,
the Patriots.
Not impressed. That's the real takeaway here. Guy,
you gotta earn it with Guy, man. You gotta earn it.
Bills all the time. You gotta do it by more than a touchdown, man. I want to see a smackdown.
Beating the Bills.
You see our question here from Jack?
What's that? Oh, okay. Do we think that since Baby Yoda came from the temple, that him and Cal from Fallen Order know each other?
They say that there's a lot, he went through, there's a lot of, darkness in his memory, so I would say that they probably do know each other in some way, but he doesn't remember it, just because, we're unclear on why this happened, but they, hid him away, right, and then, his memory goes black, and then, he's still trying to figure out, what, where he is, who he is, etc., and if he can access the Force, and if he can do it in a, in a good way.
Right. It's such a beautiful writing trick, actually. And I know a lot of times, like, people, like, if they spot stuff like this, they'll like roll their eyes at it or they'll be cynical about it. And I'm like, it's beautiful. It gives you It gives you the freedom to fill in the blanks of his dark memory with whatever you decide it is that he has remembered, whichever characters it turns out he's interacted with. And it's like
retcon it so easily. They don't know where they're actually going with this yet. They're just giving themselves the
it gives you the freedom to add. Like, I don't. There can be a lot of different ways. And I'll tell you this, as somebody who's tried to write things of that level. My brother's written several novels of this nature, and most of the time, people don't know where they're going with stuff until they get there. And you have to leave yourself freedom to fill the details in. And so when you do it in a way like this, like, but that's totally what that is. But I love it because it also, it's like to Eric's thing earlier, it intrigues me. It makes me go, oh man, what about his past are we going to uncover? And there's a treasure trove. So, all right, we did play the game. Jesus, like, let's just find out. All right, let's go ahead and just do the character rankings now. We can bang out some of these other things later. But this is the big set. This is the main event. This is what people came for.
Oh boy!
And I think there's only going to be obviously one major addition here, but this is going to get interesting. Knockdown, drag out. Now we put Grief Karga on the list at number 5 last week. Basically, we even said at the times, like Carl Weathers. We both thought he did an excellent job of directing the episode. Kale and I did, and we're big Weathers marks. So we put him on there, also knowing that he was probably never going to have an opportunity for the rest of the season to get back on the power rank.
Yeah,
nice to see you. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, he was a placeholder, like a wooden hand, like
that an alligator might.
Yeah. There's no chance he stays on that top 5.
I love it. When you go to Carl Weathers' main profile page or whatever, he says he's an actor and former NFL player as opposed to the other way around. And I think that's actually fantastic that he's been so successful in his acting career that a lot of people probably have no idea.
I didn't know. I didn't know.
No. Really? Yeah.
I didn't know.
Solid NFL career for Carl Weathers. All right. So I think he's probably off for sure. We had Cara Dune in there at number 4. We had Baby Yoda.
Oh, the real question here is what happens? What happens with that entry now?
Yeah, that's going to be fascinating.
Ooh, I cannot wait.
We had Bo-Katan at number 2, which I think if either of you had been on there, that might not have happened. But Kale and I are huge marks for both Bo-Katan and for Stuck, so that worked out really well in our favor. And then Mando sticking there at number 1. And we'll see how all of this goes. Where do we want to start here? There's a lot of different ways.
Let's talk. Let's look it right in the face, guys. What happens with Baby Yoda now that we know his name is Grogu? Does that? I mean, how does that impact? Does that change the coach's vote? We're USA Today. Where are we going with that?
I think he stays at number 3 personally.
Oh.
I already know who my 1 and 2 are.
I gotta say, I think Grogu goes up a level for me. I think Grogu number 2. I love Grogu. He's adorable, and he makes all kinds of baby noises, and he loves grabbing a little circle thing, and he tries to fix the ship and comically can't do it. What could be more adorable? Those baby noises, though, that does it for me.
So as a design guy, to Guy's point about this, he is ultimately a plush toy to sell. What's better to sell, Baby Yoda or Grogu? Are we up? Because I love the name Grogu, but Baby Yoda, man, how are we gonna sell? People aren't gonna stop calling him Baby Yoda. I don't.
No. I mean, well, he was supposed to be the child, right? Like up to this
point.
He was the
right.
Kid.
The kid, right?
Because it's Western style, so he's the kid. When you see boxes on the shelf with Baby Yoda in there, it's going to say Baby Yoda parentheses Grogu.
Grogu.
That's
Grogu.
Grogu. I gotta be honest, I wasn't ready for Grogu. Grogu was like more like goobly gobbledy than I was expecting. I thought his name would be like kind of cute. But is Grogu cute?
Did he give himself this name? Did someone? Yeah. Well, I don't know. Yeah.
Do we know?
Those are the
guys,
only
Why did he
sounds
name
he can
himself
make.
Spider-Man?
do we know like what? Do we know what race Grogu and Yoda are? Do we have any sort of intel on this?
Sort of.
Okay.
So
The
it's
kind that we know of.
yeah, and for there to be any more, you got to go back like the ancient stuff that like video games and novels and like the really yeah.
boy.
Like, we're not even talking about the cartoons anymore, man. We're talking about
Oh.
like yeah. So no, and for a long time, Yoda was the only of his kind in canon, and he was just a Yoda. And so I think that's part of what they're playing on here is like even hardcore fans, this part of the lore hasn't been really looked into that deeply. So we don't know how more Yodas are made, where they come from, what they do, or if one could even potentially be evil. And I do think that in Knights of the Old Republic, there is a being of that race who is an evil wielder of the
Don't you
Force.
feel like just in this conversation we've just had that Grogu has shot up, even rivaling potentially the top spot? Grogu!
High on Grogu.
I just love old Grogu. He's the best. I like Grogu better than I like that Bo-Katan. I got to be honest. I like Bo-Katan's hair kind of bothered me, if I'm being honest. There's something about the cut and the coloring. Again with the metal headband.
Oh,
The hair, the tentacles could be a hat. The hair could be a hat. I don't know.
Hair could be a hat. All right. Well, let's table the Grogu conversation for now. And Guy, why don't you make the case for who I think you believe should be the highest riser on the power rankings?
It should be Ahsoka Tano because she was A, the best acted, B, she pulls from so much lore from the rest of the series, and C, she actually is like driving this series somewhere. Like if it weren't for her, I would almost be out of interest in this at this point. If we got another episode like the previous 4 at this point, I don't know how I could have kept going. So
I'm sure John Favreau is tuning in, and I hope he's taking notes. Listen, do
Devastated.
you want to
You
lose
were about to
Guy,
lose
John?
one
Yeah.
person, buddy. All right. Would you make the case that she deserves the top spot, or are you
That's
just gonna
yeah.
You're
present
gonna
it
put her
number
top
one
spot?
Yeah.
over Mando?
Whoa!
See, I think there's an argument to be made there as well. She was.
Whoa!
This was so completely her episode, and while Mando wins the day at the end of every episode, it's been a while since he's really shown any character growth or done much
Right.
of anything or
He's
shown
more intriguing.
agency.
He's kind of like
Totally.
he's very, like deadpan. Like he does a lot of cool things, but he's like I don't know. His intrigue has run out at this point. And
No,
so
but
we
whoa,
have the backup.
hey, pump the brakes, kid.
So hold on. So what I'm interpreting from this conversation is you guys are bringing a lot of prior knowledge into this vote. You guys had feelings about Ashoku going into this that you have grafted onto this episode. Me as a person who just spent the entire time wondering if her tentacles were a hat, felt that she was like pretty cool. She's like, I understand there's probably a lot more there, but like she hasn't earned it yet. Like not in the context of the show. She just showed up and was like, "What's up? I can't train your kid," and then left.
Yeah, I know this whole like this series, this universe that's only been around for going on 45 years at this point. Yeah, you really.
We're talking
should be
about
bringing
this
prior knowledge
show.
into this, should we? I know, but it exists.
I'm telling you,
within the
I'm telling you, as somebody who doesn't know anything about her, like seeing her, like I was like, okay, cool, she's a Jedi. Like I know that you guys have like much reverence for her, apparently, because I think she was like a big deal in the cartoons, and
Yes.
she probably So she herself was like not like I think she probably has reached great heights in other avenues. And it's not that she wasn't good in this. It's just there's no chance she's the best character in all of the
Yeah, but you
Mandalorian
understand that
based
the
on
Mandalorian, he's built upon the shoulders of Boba Fett, and everyone.
Yeah, but we've
loves
seen
Boba
him now
Fett.
for 14 episodes.
I get it. But he, like his whole his everything is built upon the intrigue of Boba Fett and how everyone liked, the cool bad guy in. Yes.
No.
Well, okay.
He's not.
So let me
Boba
ask you
Fett
this,
Jr.,
Eric.
There's no Boba Fett.
Yeah.
No, and I think we'll whittle this down actually. But you're an NBA guy, in power rankings that
Yeah,
if you have a
absolutely.
hot week, love it, Johnny. If you have a hot week, you can be number one in the power rankings
Sure,
without
sure.
anybody thinking you're the best team in the NBA, right?
Well,
So saying that Ahsoka Tano's number one in the power rankings isn't necessarily saying that she's. It's just that she had such a hot week. She rose to the top of the power ranking. She could drop back down if she's not even on next week's episode.
ooh.
This is Michael Jordan coming out of retirement and dropping 60 right now. That's
Yo,
why.
she didn't drop 60 though. That's what I'm telling you. She did not drop
Dropped
60.
like 35.
She dropped 35.
Grab
All right,
hey,
fine. So she's on
This
the.
Mandalorian's
She
been
made the
giving you,
top
like, a
5.
plotting 18.
We're
for
talking about
36 now.
2 seasons now.
Straight up.
There's literally hundreds of characters. I mean, she can't be the best character coming in fresh off the street.
Let's whittle it down at the back end of the list because let me ask you this, Eric. Let's do the either or. Is Ahsoka Tano over Bo-Katan?
Yeah, oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, okay. So I think Bo-Katan's in 5th unless we
Those
want
both
anyone
sound-
else over her. We moved
both
it. I know.
sound like,
Ahsoka Tano,
towns in
Bo-Katan. Do you
Florida.
feel like a Star Wars person yet? We got to do
Those-
that game we talked
Yeah,
about.
Ahsoka Tano, Bo-Katan.
You're not a Star
Ahsoka
Wars
Tano.
person until you hate yourself.
Oh,
Yeah.
then I'm a Star Wars person. I've been a Star Wars
And
person
Star
since,
Wars.
I was, since my teens. Well, I mean, I love Star Wars, man. Like, I watched a lot of goddamn Star Wars. Like, I knew all about it when I was a kid and when through my teens. As soon as the prequels came out, I was working in movie theaters. I spent a long time, like, being very excited for the Phantom Menace to come out. And when the Phantom Menace came out, I was like, I have been lied to. My life is a lie. What have I done? I can't. I've learned to
You're one
love
of those
only to have it turned on me. Yeah, right. And then, like, they just got worse and worse. And
I will say there are redeeming qualities about Episode 3, though.
oh no, they're
I was
not.
gonna say
Episode 2
they.
isn't the
Oh,
best, but I think it still
Episode 3.
contributes.
Oh,
Episode
it
3
sucks though. It's
actually
as a
has
movie, it
qualities.
sucks.
Episode
Like,
3 is good.
It's not good.
Episode
It's
3
like
is good.
it's of those. It's the one where you're like, okay, there's some
Eric,
like
you're
interesting
cutting off
stuff.
your nose to spite your face right now.
No, like you just, it really is not a good movie. But like the original 3 are like good movies, and like the last 3 that we've gotten for the most part have been like
Jedi
good
isn't
movies.
particularly good. Episode
I mean,
6
all right,
is-
we're not going to relegate the whole series right now. Let's finish up these power rankings. We'll get back into it. I think hopefully if enough people watch, and by the way, make sure you're subscribed to the DNVR Watches feed so that you're getting this podcast regularly. We appreciate it. Enough people do that. Maybe we'll find a reason to do watches of all the movies, and we can go in depth onto why Eric is wrong and Guy is wrong, and I'm the only one with the correct Star Wars opinions. But
What about lesbian duck here? Grogu over everyone. Finally, a reasonable
Grogu
take.
over everyone. Are we comfortable with Bo-Katan at number 5?
Yes.
For anybody
Number 5?
else, maybe
Yeah, okay, good.
the magistrate from this episode. There's no other new characters, right? Morgan Elsbeth
No.
didn't as a villain. She doesn't make the list. We haven't seen Moff Gideon in a while, so he's off the list.
Seeing Moff Gideon.
I think we're good
Moff
with
Gideon.
Bo-Katan in at number 5, but this is where it already immediately gets tough.
Things are getting.
I
tough.
guess Cara Dune. That's who I was missing. So is Bo-Katan or Cara Dune? Who's in at number 5 there?
Remind me again. Which one is Cara Dune?
She's the
That's the big gal who's a badass in battle but can't say a line of dialogue without making you giggle because she's a bad actor, but she's great in fights. Boy, is she fun. She was in last season. She came back with Carl Weathers last episode, and they're like, hey, we're here from last season to
What's
kick
her
some
name?
ass. And
Gina. What, her in real
something
life?
like
What's her
that.
Yeah,
I have no idea.
I like her. She's cool.
She's so poorly
Yeah.
acted.
I mean, everybody
can't-
really acted.
Read lines of dialogue very well, but I think Pedro Pascal and Rosario Dawson, obviously, it's so weird to bring an actor of that caliber onto this project and like raise the quality of everyone's performance that much. I'm sure she was just getting the most out of everybody on set. But yeah, okay, so we can slide then Cara Dune in at number 5, Bo-Katan at number 4, and then the bloodbath starts. Because then Eric's
boy.
going to want Ahsoka Tano at 3, no higher than, and want to
No.
move Baby Yoda up to 1.
I mean,
Guy's
I wish you
gonna
wouldn't
want
put
to
words
keep
in my.
Baby
I wish you
Yoda at
wouldn't.
3.
I wish you wouldn't
Right?
put words in my
Just-
mouth, but those
all
are
right.
my exact words. It's exactly what I would say. Put Grogu
I'm
number
so
one.
insane on this.
So you're
What's
the
weird-
you're the tiebreaker then.
But here's the problem: is I'm so in between. What I sort of feel though, where I agree with both of you, and this is where we're going to get in some interesting trouble. I don't think Mando deserves the top spot anymore, just because it's his show and he's typically awesome. I think this does go above him, but I mean, it was Ahsoka's episode. It really was. She was so good. And I'm also a huge mark for Rosario Dawson, so I just don't know if like that's all.
well,
And the
here we
character,
go.
like Eric's
Yeah,
saying, like
yeah.
I'm bringing in all this. It's like I'm bringing in the cartoon
Yeah.
show. I'm
You're
bringing in
bringing it
that
all
she's,
in.
yeah,
All of that wasn't in this episode. She was good. She wasn't
she's got
the
white
greatest.
lightsabers.
She wasn't the best character to grace these Mandalorian screens, though.
This season,
God.
she's the most interesting character we've seen on the screen in the second season of The Mandalorian.
I would say that has to go to Grogu, number one. But I would go Grogu number one. I'll give you Ahsoka number two, and then Mandalorian number three. I'll do it. I don't care.
Well, you're the tiebreaker, Drew. You already know my order.
Wow,
Ahsoka, Mando, Grogu.
Whoa, Grogu number three.
he's got Grogu 3.
Dude, he has
Just
a
getting
name
the
now,
name on
Grogu.
Grogu would be
It's
off
just-
the list if it wasn't for us finding out some backstory about him in this episode.
See, the thing is, like, if you stepped away and you just like talked to like just some person in the mall, and you're like, "What do you think of the Mandalorian? Who's your favorite in the Mandalorian?" You know what they would say? They'd say Grogu. They'd say
Grogu.
What they would actually say would be Baby Yoda.
Baby Yoda.
And then the Mandalorian is also like, as you've pointed out, I mean, he's very, very flat, but he's supposed to be flat. He's just like he's like emotionless, and he just sort of takes what comes, and he's a hero, but also a villain. He sort of just like plays both sides of the line. We don't really know what to make of him, but he is a little flat, like. But that Grogu, man, my heart.
Eric, how many times have you had to explain the nuances of Jokic's game to the casual NBA fan?
Oh, this is
who thinks
not-
that
no,
Anthony
no,
Davis
no,
is
no.
all that.
No,
This is such
this
a
not
good
that.
analogy.
No, this is a poor analogy because
Like, wow, Dwight Howard really worked Jokic down in the paint in that series, man. You're like, okay,
who is
cool,
Dwight
you
Howard
don't
in this
understand.
in this great analogy? Who's Dwight
Baby
Howard?
Yoda, Grogu.
Baby Grogu is Dwight Howard.
Yeah, he's just bodying people down there with the cheap shots. Yeah, and he's not actually contributing anything.
This is insulting on like 6 levels. This is terrible.
This is
Mando is
amazing.
the Jokic.
Oh my God.
That's amazing. Lesbian duck. Mando is the Jokic of The Mandalorian. You know he's the main guy, but you don't watch the show because of
Well, see, that's wrong. I do watch because of Jokic. He's the greatest, man. Look at this. I'm literally wearing a Jokic shirt while talking
that's
about the
why I brought it
Mandalorian.
up. Grogu's
I've got them
MPJ.
both on mine. And I might have
Grogu is
to go.
MPJ. Grogu is MPJ. Like, he's got so much potential. We've seen little flashes. This fan base is obsessed with him, and he's just not getting enough. Like, John Favreau isn't giving him enough playing time. But I think that all that's going to change, baby. Look at it,
John
Grogu,
Favreau
definitely
as Mike
MVP.
Malone is just too perfect. That's almost ridiculously perfect.
Drew, you are the judge now.
Oh,
We've given our
boy.
case.
All right,
I've made my
Yeah.
case. Guys made his
Both
case.
have, yeah.
Because we have to hand something to the graphics department. And I actually was thinking this before Johnny put it out there. I think this is the right compromise between the two beliefs, and I also think it's going to get some talking points going. I think there's a conversation coming out. I think the history has to count, and Ahsoka Tano has to take the number one spot.
Oh, unbelievable!
That said, I think Grogu's got to be number 2. I think Mando falls
Whoa!
after never having been outside of the top spot. I think Mando has to fall, and not through any fault of his own. He was fine this episode, with
Yeah, no.
the one shot. And it's cool, and a little showdown or whatever. But I come to science fiction and fantasy because I want to wonder. I want to go.
Oh,
I wonder what that means. I wonder what's
You
going to
wanna-
happen next.
you want to be like,
and
I
with
wonder.
Grogu,
I wonder what Jon Favreau will decide.
I wonder what Jon Favreau will decide. It used to be George Lucas, and now it's Jon Favreau, and I just wonder what they're going to do. And then they tell me, and then I go, "Oh, that was interesting."
You're like, wow, that was really disappointing. I wish they had thought it through a little bit better. That would have been a lot cooler. Yeah, all right, fine. Listen, yeah, you're being accused of simping. You're simping over.
It is. Look, man. I can't remove. And here's the other thing. This is mostly a show for Star Wars fans, both this podcast and The Mandalorian. And I do think that this episode was for those people. Like, Star Wars is about its connected universe. The best thing about Star Wars is not its writing, it's not its acting, it's the very first idea. It's that George Lucas created a place where there are lightsaber blasters and Jedi and an empire and droids and all of these things. And this was an episode that celebrated that as much as any. And Ahsoka Tano she sits at the center of that. It was such a loving adaptation of a character that could have so easily been ruined and so easily have made somebody like Guy. If they get Ahsoka Tano wrong, Guy is never watching this show ever again. If they get her,
he might already be out. Look at him. He might already be out. Look at him.
But she was fantastic. He's got to be.
I will say that, to build on what Drew's saying here, Eric, again, this is probably going to leave you in the dust because you don't acknowledge the prequels. But Darth Maul was actually a compelling character, and they fleshed him out in a lot of the other aspects of the Star Wars universe. So when they included him in Episode 8 and then didn't build upon that in Episode 9, that was one of the ultimate letdowns in Star Wars history. So I'm excited to see where they go from this, and I hope they learn their lesson from that because that aspect of it was so intriguing. He goes through this whole process where, spoiler alert for those of you that haven't seen the cartoons or anything, but he loses his legs. So you see him on this hologram sort of thing, but just the top half of him. So you want to know, you want to be oh my God, did he get his legs back? What's going on? And you want to know more about him, and you see that he's part of, the Rebel Alliance and everything, or not the Rebel Alliance, sorry,
the Empire.
Yeah, but no, they renamed it after the Empire.
Oh, the Fallen Order, yeah.
The Fallen Order, yeah.
Oh,
and they never brought him back in Episode 9, and it was one of the most disappointing things ever. So to see Ahsoka Tano come into this, I mean, they're leaving her behind, to go find, this stone that's at the top of a mountain and everything like that. But I don't think she's done, especially if they're willing to pay someone like Rosario Dawson to be on this show. I think that they have a larger role for her, and she's not gone yet.
Totally.
Yeah, that would be if you guys award the number one spot to a literal spot starter that comes in and never appears in these episodes again. I mean, what are we doing here?
This was Linsanity.
You know what this is like?
Yeah, this is Linsanity.
Took the words right out of my mouth. This was Linsanity, Eric. This is what this was. There's a bunch of people and non-basketball fans coming and going, that Jeremy Lin's the basketball player in the world, and basketball fans being no, he's not. But right now we don't care. Right now, Ahsoka Tano is Jeremy Lin.
You didn't forget Linsanity. You still remember it.
I know,
totally.
but Jeremy Lin here wasn't even able to train Goku or Grogu. And didn't you love seeing the fatherly side of the Mandalorian come out? Where he, didn't that deepen your feelings towards the Mando a little bit? Where you saw that he was caring.
That final shot was really nice. Where he's holding him, and that's cute.
He was holding him, and then you felt that bond. And then what happened? They just closed the door, and Ashoka was just left on this burned up planet, and they just took off.
She's lived a rough life, man. She's on the front lines, bro. Look at guys look.
I'm just gonna start calling you Iraq or something. Just
little respect. Little respect on the name. And on that note,
all right, fine.
No, I was gonna say, final thoughts. Throw them my way. What do we got?
Final thought is that, like I said, I do believe that we're starting to pick up a little steam here. I think we're heading towards ultimately a pretty interesting ending to what has been sort of a meandering plot, moving. as Guy said, I mean, he's just like stopping in place to place, and like, it's like kung fu. You just go from town to town and solve mysteries and that you can wrap up simply in simply in half an hour, and then you just move on and you find another adventure. But it feels like we're getting something substantive that is ultimately building on the promise that was made by introducing Grogu in the first place. So I'm excited. It seems like we're going to get something worth talking about. Grogu.
Oh, I love you, Eric.
The greatest thing is like people like you said, literally only people that will listen to this are like hardcore Star Wars fans. They're just gonna be like, "What the fuck?" And like, why are we listening to this goddamn Star Wars layman?
Logan, I love the Broncos, the Nuggets, and Star Wars. Well, cool.
We love you. We love you too, Logan.
Yeah.
Only on this podcast will we compare the Mandalorian to Nikola Jokic. That's all we can promise.
Incorrectly, by the way. Incorrectly.
MPJ as Grogu is pretty spot on, though. I feel like we're good on that.
Dead on.
Well, next week, we will go through every character on The Mandalorian and tell you which Denver athlete they are. That actually would be fun. Maybe that's something we do at the end of the season. But we're going to keep doing this.
Grogu is anti-vax, yeah.
Whoa, getting intense up in here. So, yeah, we're doing these live watches on Fridays at 8 p.m. We're doing the live show right after that. And, of course, you can get the podcast if you're subscribed to the DNVR Watches feed. Highly recommend you do that so you don't miss out on any of these. You can go back. We've covered this whole second season of The Mandalorian so far. 10 of it. And who knows, maybe there will even be opportunities to talk about some other Star Wars stuff after that. Make sure to check out our character power rankings and yell at us on social media.
Not me. I didn't agree with these.
He's at Line Co. Yell at him specifically. Send all angry emails about the low ranking. Hey, you got Grogu to number 2.
I got number 2. I feel good about that. I actually feel good about that.
Over Mando. So that's pretty good. There you go. Yeah. How is his name pronounced? It's Filoni, Dave Filoni. I know his face. He's really good. He's one of those guys who's like super in love with Star Wars, and now he gets to make it, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, this I would say this episode was absolutely like crafted with love, and you can really tell that they all are because, I mean, there's just so much baked in there for just the Star Wars fanatic. I mean, it's like you're talking like all of these little references and like little plot points that come together. My favorite part of all of it, though, is like I love the concept art that they use at the end of each show and they like animate it. There's like that's incredible.
Yeah.
The amount of, I mean, it's like absolutely. This is the way. This is the Star Wars way. I mean, you see all of those old concept. All that old concept art from the 70s that sort of cultivated the entire universe. It's just cool to see it like carried on. I do appreciate it very much.
Everyone in the comments is telling you to watch Clone Wars, so that's everyone's homework for this next week. Go and watch 7 seasons of the Clone Wars. It's really good. If you've ever been on the fence about it and you liked this Ahsoka Tano character, go check out the Clone Wars. If not, just join us next week for more Mandalorian watches here at DNVR. We really do enjoy it. For Guy and Eric, I've been Drew Kreisman. We've had a whole lot of fun. Thank you all for hanging out with us, and we will see you next time.
Let's go, Drew.